serious about it, you're close. So we've been monitoring. No problems. I have issues with umpires at times being smart, Alex. Why don't you get a kick? Hey, don't backtrack me. There are umpires who do that. Absolutely.
Names or?
Well, I think Ray Chambers does that a lot of times. Hey, at Talking Footy 7, interested to see what the big Talking Footy audience think of that out there. I reckon you might a bit of support for Duck. Hey, we've had 6 rounds gone, 12 games played between Sydney and Hawthorn. Just one win is at the end of 2 great empires.
Just when the Hawk fans thought they were going to block it up, they're messing with them now. This is getting embarrassing for the Hawks.
Oh, turnover.
And he accentuates the pain for Hawthorn. The Hawks go down. Definitely a changing of the guard.
If it sits, he's in business. It does sit. He's not in business yet. He's not in business.
His handball missed the target. Wienering makes him pay. I haven't seen stuff like this from the Swans for 10 years.
This is a sad Saturday. This is the fall of 2 great clubs.
Sad Saturday, says our own Bristol man, Brian Taylor. Tom Brown, always on top of what's happening in the world of football. We're going to cross to Tom live now. You've got a bit of news on the Hawks, Tommy.
Good evening, Darks. In the context of the Hawks' performance at the moment, it was posed to me today whether they'd benefit next season from Luke Hodge and Sean Burgoyne indeed playing on. I'll start with Luke Hodge. As at tonight, I understand he'll probably will retire this season. It's certainly the way he's leaning at the moment. It's a different story with Burgoyne. I contacted his manager, Ben Williams, this afternoon, and he confirmed as much to Talking Footy, telling us that he does want to play on, providing he's playing good footy and his body stays healthy at the end of the season. Clearly, the management of these 2 players in particular is another challenge for Alistair Clarkson, but I think that Luke Hodge will retire this year, although he probably would benefit the Hawks next year. It's an interesting problem the Hawks have got.
Yeah, it certainly is, Tommy. That's interesting. Before we move on to the CEO appointment today, do you expect Hodge and Burgoyne and Gibson, for that matter, all 3 to retire?
Yes, I probably do. Of those 3, probably right now, Hodge is maybe playing the best football of the 3.
He is.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Nick Revolt last week, Duck, he puts his hand up and says, yeah, I want to keep playing. I want to keep playing. because he's really enjoying his footy and where he believes St Kilda are at right now. But by the end of the year, it probably won't be the case with those three Hawthorn players.
Yeah, I agree. I think Hodgie's playing the best footy. I agree with you, but it wouldn't surprise if all three pulled the pin.
The news out of Hawthorn today is, of course, they have a new chief executive. Tracy Gaudry, who becomes the AFL's first chief executive at Clubland, was appointed today. She comes with a very interesting background, Tim. She is heavily involved in cycling. She was the CEO of the Amy Gillett Foundation. She's still the vice president of the UCI, which is essentially the international cycling body. OK,
you're the journalist here, so I'm going to put these questions to you, OK, because there's been a lot of chatter out there, a lot of speculation about why Hawthorn have taken so long to find themselves
which they have done.
Which they have, OK. And what's been coming back is the fact that people are a little bit concerned about working with Al Clarkson because he's such a powerful personality.
Yep.
Is that what you've been hearing too? And then if that's the case, why are you hearing then that Tracy's been so confident about being able to take that position and has ignored all that other chatter?
Well, there's a lot of questions there. I agree with you in the sense of a lot of people have distanced themselves from the job because of perhaps intimidation of working with Alistair Clarkson. I mean, let's not...
Is that real, though?
Like, I don't think...
In fairness to Al, is that real?
Well, I don't think we should dance around the issue. He's an intense, fiery person who is, arguably the greatest coach the game's ever seen. So
my impression is that he's single-handedly in control of that club. Now, some coaches are and some aren't. I get the...
Is that your outside impression?
Outside impression is. This is not understandable. I get the feeling he's a strong enough personality that all the key decisions come through the senior coach. That's not the case at every club.
No. Before we address more of this, and I think we need to, but let's hear from Tracy Gaudry, the chief executive, as of today, of the Hawthorn Footy Club.
We spent a good hour and a half around my kitchen table last night, shooting the breeze, talking about the things that we were going to do together as leaders of this organisation. There may well be drastic change, but let's just not forecast anything like that at this point in time.
What would you say to a club who might be considering trying to poach Alistair Clarkson?
Keep your hands off him.
Tracy Gaudry, their former Olympic cyclist. The things to come out of that press conference, Darts, she spent 90 minutes in her kitchen with Alistair Clarkson talking about everything footy, and she says hands off Alistair Clarkson for any other club trying to poach him. Now, back to your question, Tim. As a journalist, it did seem interesting to me that I believe the Hawks, in their most vulnerable state that they've been in say, the last decade, which is, since they've been winning flags, decide to appoint the head of the club as someone that doesn't have any background in football. Now, she may well be an astute businesswoman and she clearly has a great record in Australian sport. But we just don't know what she's going to be like for Alistair Clarkson, do we? I mean, that to me is intriguing by itself.
Yeah, well, it's intriguing because I don't care whether it's a male or a female. I mean,
no, of course not.
The thing is that somebody stepping into that position was always going to have to be somebody who's a very forceful, strong person. And obviously, if you're part of the selection process for this position, then they're one of the things that you need to make sure that you actually cross off is that, OK, this person is a particularly strong person because they're going to need to be with Al Clark. I mean, he's a very forceful personality.
And maybe not dancing around the issue either, is it perhaps having a female angle to it will bring something different and maybe bring out a different side to Alistair Clark. And you put another, alpha male in there, potentially, it's two balls butting heads. Maybe this is in itself is a great move.
So you think this might be a little bit strategic on behalf of Hawthorn?
Well, potentially. I'm sure they've thought of all factors, and he's a unique individual, Alistair Clarkson, genius, successful person. I think the person that surrounds him, you'd be giving a lot of thought to it, and I'm sure they have.
Fiona de Jong, of course, formerly CEO of the AOC, was heavily linked to the job, as was former Saints president Michael Netterfold. But let's hear from Alistair Clarkson. He was pretty fired up again on the weekend.
If we continue to have performances like that, then there'll need to be catastrophic change, and that's not usually the way that we go about doing things.
Obviously, everyone over the weekend has picked up the word catastrophic.
Yep.
It's a fairly big word.
It is a big word, but he said before that if we continue to go down this way. So what's surprising and disappointing for the Hawks, not the fact that they've just lost the games, but in the manner they've lost the games. I mean, 80-point losses and then a 75-point loss. I mean, they are floggings. That's not being beaten. That is the ease of the goals on the weekend.
They're rolling over. They're just rolling over.
Yeah, that's the real concern. That's something that we have never seen under Alistair Clarkson before.
So where do they go, Tim? I mean, I know that's such a broad question, but if these results keep happening, what do they do?
I reckon the first thing is you back your players, and that's what he's always done. Like the players that have been there and have done that, you back them first, and when they can't produce, at that point, then you try and shake up that group, and you might drop one or two of those senior players that have been around for a while and premiership players.
Who would you drop? Do you have any idea?
Well, I think Gibson is really struggling. But I think that the defence is really being exposed now because of what they can't do further up the field.
Yeah.
Now, there's been a midfield that's been able to hold sway. They can't hold sway there now. So I think what they really have to attempt to do is rebuild that midfield. Now, that's easier said than done. They've got two players that have come into the side. Jago O'Meara's still trying to find his feet. Tommy Mitchell's probably been the best player they've had this season.
Getting heaps of the ball, yeah.
Getting plenty of the ball, yeah.
Do you like the list at Hawthorn at the moment? Do you like the young talent that you see coming through?
No, there's not enough of it, no.
You don't jump out off the page, do you, at the moment? So that's going to be the next group that are going to drive. Have a look at this. We just went through this comparing Hawthorn and Sydney. One win between them. Hawks have won just the one game. And you go down there, Duck, and have a look at Hartung, Sicily, Howard, Burton, Stewart, Hardwick, Pittenay, Miles, Lovell and Heatherley. A few players down there I'm sure a lot of people have never heard of before. I mean, there's not someone you go, now that is the man that's going to be the next gun at Hawthorn, is it?
That doesn't quite marry up to Sydney, does it? And a lot of those kids, I mean,
Heaney's a star.
Jones, Hewitt, Jack Mills, obviously.
Mills is going to be a star.
Happily, Alir, I think, is going to be a star as well. I think he'll be a very good player.
That's a glaring graphic, that one.
That is.
Yeah. But you'd rather take Sydney's young players than you'd take Hawthorn's right now.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, the AFL be smoking the pipe. I mean, this is exactly what they wanted. They wanted teams to have success. Well, this is exactly what they want. They want teams to have success, and then they want them to take their turn at the bottom of the ladder again and build themselves up.
Well, let's move on to the Swans, shouldn't we? They were beaten by Carlton. No one saw this coming at the MCG on Saturday afternoon. Their coach, John Longmire, and their head of footy, Tom Harley, had this to say post-match.
We're playing an unacceptable brand of football. It takes a long time to develop a brand and a reputation as a team, and it doesn't take long to lose that.
You can't hope, you've got to make things happen. When you're building your individual plans, you've got to make sure you distinguish pretty clearly between reasons and excuses, and we're not in the interest of excuses at all.
Yeah, John Longmire and Tommy Harley there. What he just said before, that the AFL will be rubbing their hands together.
No, I said they'd be smoking the pipe.
Smoking the pipe, sorry, I take that back. want to quote you accurately on our own show.
Don't misquote.
I don't think in the past having Sydney have a poor year had always been in the AFL's plans, and they've had concessions that have socially engineered Sydney to be in the finals. They've only missed one final series in the last 14 years. Those concessions are now gone. So they've lost $2 million in the salary cap that got them Kurt Tippett, got them Buddy Franklin. I think there's a bit of a direct consequence going on to the fact that they have come back to the field and concession-wise.
Yeah.
And it's a change of tune for the AFL. That hasn't been the case before.
No, but then they've got GWS on the other side of Sydney actually propping the city up at the moment, with their performances. Do we all think that Sydney are going to stay down for a long period of time, or do you think that they'll rebound quickly?
I think if you look at that young talent, and we've seen what they've been able to do this year, and they've been in some of the games, really disappointing on the weekend. That was their worst performance of the year, clearly.
Yeah.
But with that young talent coming through, and then a couple of the players that are injured, and a couple of players out of form. Let's not forget, Hanbury and Parker are still young men.
Yeah.
They're still going to get better, believe it or not. So they've got a lot of upside, Sydney. If they were to miss the finals this year, they are a side.
Hey, if they were, you'd be ruling them out now, wouldn't you?
If they were, I'm still not prepared to rule them out of playing finals footy.
At 0-6.
0-6. I'm still not prepared to rule Sydney out just yet.
Duck.
But they are certainly a team that can bounce back into the 8 next year straight away.
It's going to be a good bounce back this year, Duck, if they are able to do that. I want to move on to the Pies. Extraordinary win for them on the back of a 5-day turnaround. I don't think anyone thought it was going to be the case. Their president had a passionate call to arms last week. Let's go back and have a look.
This is what is inside my marrow. We are the scum of football at the moment, as we were in 125 years ago when we were the scum of Victoria in the depths of the Great Depression, and we stood side by side. Now, whether we get the results, time will tell. But I tell you what we won't do. We'll never give up. We'll never dog it. We won't turn on our own. We don't get spooked by headlines. We don't get spooked by people who celebrate one day, dance on your grave the next.
Well, this was sheer genius, I would think, by Eddie Maguire last week, Darce. I mean, you get to see and hear him each and every day. I also believe that that really resonated with the players there at Collingwood too.
And I understand that to be the case. I think the players definitely heard it. It was an impassioned plea. You don't have to mistake the passion of that man. I think we're all pretty clear on that.
And, saying the players were revved up by the president.
Well, I understand that the players definitely heard the audio of that, and it wouldn't be the first time that you heard a speech from a president of a football club, Sam. And
no, but surely they're already revved up enough. The fact that their season's going down the gurgler and they want to play for their coach.
Yeah, sometimes there's just an extra bit of emotion.
You would think so. One of the things that came out of the weekend, and I heard Nathan Buckley or one of the players, might have been Scott Pendlebury, after the game, talk about the freedom. Bucks basically said to them, you know, obviously defensively, when they tackle and pressure, when they do that well, and I thought they did that really well, but played with the freedom. He said, take the game on, move the ball. They had a bit of fluency in their play. It wasn't stop-start, it wasn't stagnant. So it's taken this long for them to give them a little bit of freedom and play with a little bit of flair, and that's exactly what they did, and it
was great to see a bit of relief on Nathan Buckley's face. All of us know him well in the industry. He's one of the good guys who's been under enormous pressure, and this was a bit of a new situation. A lot of coaches choose not to go in the song. I think this is a pretty special moment. Nathan Buckley got amongst his players. Maybe are we seeing a bit of a change of tack from Bucks on that front as well?
No, I just think that it was probably all the emotion that had gone into this performance, and a real relief for him to actually get the 4 points, because it will mean that Collingwood, I mean, we're talking about him now, but we're talking about him in a positive light as opposed to how we would have been talking about them had they lost. Extraordinary. You know, you watch Essendon play yesterday. They couldn't run out of their own, get out of their own way. And then you're thinking, gee, you know, Collingwood's going to get smashed this afternoon if this is indicative of how the side pulls up after an Anzac Day game. They had run in their legs. They had spread. They looked as sprightly as they had at any stage this year.
Could not be happier for Nathan Buckley after the weekend.
This game's played...
I was so happy yesterday.
This is just above the shoulders, this game, though, isn't it? It's all above the shoulders.
No doubt.
I just want to know if there's anything in this. This is Selwood and Pendlebury right on the siren. There's about 15 seconds to go here. They're running together through the middle of the MCG. And you see the siren goes, and there's just a little bit of to and fro, and then it continues as the siren goes.
So this is really funny to me because 10 seconds earlier, you're giving each other. I'd love to get a bit of audio on the verbal that would be going on. Then the siren goes and it's a bit awkward because you just got to change tack.
Yeah, but he didn't dismiss the handshake, did he?
No, it took a bit of time to digest a little bit.
I understand, but we're talking about probably one of the most competitive beasts that have ever played the game. He's dirty on himself. He's dirty on the result. But there was no sign there of unsportsmanlike behaviour from him at all.
Is the tagger back? Just on Selwood again. I mean, Greenwood, that's the third time in a row Greenwood's held Selwood under 20 disposals.
The tag is back if you've got one. But not all teams have got a genuine tag.
But you've got one if you want one, though. If you want to develop one, you've got one.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can develop a tagger.
But we keep hearing, Duck, that sides, because you have to have this team defence, you can't have a tagger anymore. I mean, Collingwood defied that yesterday.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'll be interested to see whether or not they go ahead again this weekend against Carlton. They shut down Murphy and they shut down Gibbs.
They have to.
In a similar way.
Yeah.
They've got a beauty, Levi Greenwood, to do it. They should make that role his. I agree. Can I just float an idea? And it's not a new one, but Gary Ablett last year requested a trade back to Geelong.
Yeah.
Could you imagine a midfield that had Dangerfield, Selwood and Ablett starting at a centre bounce? I mean, you have to tell me Geelong's got to find a way to do that.
Can you see that happening?
Well, if you could get Gary, and I think you could get him to take close to half the pay that he's been currently on, and he'd go back there and play 3 unbelievable years. It'd be a great fairy tale. And that side, they've loaded up. They've gone and got Dangerfield. They've got Henderson. They've got Zach Tui. So they put all their eggs in winning a premiership with this group. Why wouldn't you, when you've got a player that wants to go back to his hometown, why wouldn't you, Duck, try and make it happen?
Why would any other club allow that to happen? You just wouldn't want that to happen.
Gold Coast Suns talked to Gary Ablett and he says, I'm not going to play footy next year, which he's almost said, unless I get to go where I want to go.
I'm hearing they pay him to play for Geelong.
Well,
that's not going to happen.
I'm hearing your old mob would like to have him as well.
The Dogs?
Yeah, the Dogs, yeah.
He gets good mail, Wispy. I haven't heard that, but I like it.
You haven't heard that. You run the Dogs.
Not for me.
Speaking of good mail, this actually might be bad mail. Brad Fitzgerald, who's a local radio DJ, he caused a bit of a storm today when he suggested this.
I have it on extremely good authority that not only is there an offer on the table from St Kilda, the offer is worth $1.5 million a season. Like, he can't sign yet, but it's basically a done deal.
That's probably as close to a publicity stunt that you're going to see. It's wrong. It's categorically incorrect. Everyone connected to it, St Kilda, Fremantle and his manager, Jason Dover, who I've just got off the phone with, has laughed at out the window.
I've already heard you say once this year, though, that St Kilda are into fight.
Of course
they are prepared to pay $1.5 million a year.
No, they are.
So that part's right.
That's not what he was saying.
Okay,
he was saying that he's signed.
Would it be wrong? Okay, that's true. That part's wrong. But would it be wrong of a football club now to be wanting an answer from somebody like Fife, because they need to actually start planning, Duck, where they're heading at the end of this season? And he's going to take and command a huge amount of the salary cap.
You're the man that does all the the digging. So has there been at least a conversation between St Kilda and Fife's manager?
No doubt.
And so it's not that far off the mark then, is it?
No, it is, Dart. So just let me clarify this for a second. There's been conversations from Melbourne. There's been conversations from Carlton.
Yeah.
There's probably been conversations from Essendon. I mean, who wouldn't want to know if Nat Fife's available?
I think what Otto's point is saying is that Buddy Franklin, when he decided that he was going to move to Sydney Swans, it was a point in the year, maybe around this time, where he had to give a guarantee. Couldn't sign, but he had to give a guarantee through his management that he was going to go to Sydney because they have to organise their salary cap. So if Nat Fife is to move, then at some point he is going to have to do exactly that and tell a club that he's going to go. He can't sign because that's against the rules.
Yeah.
But you've got to go back to August last year, and I find this fascinating. Nat Fife was asked the question about his future. Let's cast our mind back to August last year.
The idea of free agency is that players do have a say in their career, and it would be remiss of me not to look at every possible option.
So there you go. He was putting it on the table. I think they got to him pretty quickly for him out and said, not a good idea to do that. And he changed his tune pretty quickly. But stay tuned on that. Sam saying no good.
It's wrong.
OK, at Talking Footy, 7AFL Facebook. Get involved in the W Files. More to come here on Talking Footy. Still to come on Talking Footy, what went wrong for Joe Danaher on the weekend? Are the Crows the greatest attacking force the game has ever seen? And Richmond failed their biggest test, but is there some hope for the Tiger Army? That's all still ahead on a massive Talking Footy.
We're talking footy. We're talking footy.
Welcome back to Talking Footy. I want to ask Wayne Kerr, have you spent any time with Joe Danaher?
No.
Would you be interested?
I always take a call.
I think he'd be up for a bit of time with you because 1 goal 6 on the weekend has been the thing that is holding him back from being probably the most exciting forward in the game. Just couldn't get it right on the weekend, Duck. Is it fixable?
I tell you what, last year I thought he was an easy fix because he did the same thing every time, Tim. It was a hook, really bad hook. But as you can see there, he's now slicing them. So what he's done is he's overcorrected whatever he was doing last year. That one there's... and there's the celebration after a goal. But what did you take of it, Tim? Because
it's interesting body language is what, isn't it? Like he's laughing and that's a little play hug. This is stuff to hide. Michael Hibbert doesn't want to bar that.
No.
That's unusual.
You know what? It is unusual, but
that is his character. Isn't it?
It's his character. He enjoys his footy, you know. Like, and I know a lot of people are going to belt him probably. Tonight in different forums and that type of thing because of that body language, but that's how he goes about his stuff. You know, like last week he was best on ground in the game, in the Anzac Day game.
He was laughing in that game.
He was still laughing. He looks like he's out there to enjoy himself, and I'm loath to criticise him for looking like he enjoys being out there.
I totally agree.
Do you think old school coaches of ours might have had a different view of that?
They would have, yes.
I like it too.
Sorry. Where do we see the Demons right now? Don't put me off. Where do we see the Demons right now?
Right now, I think they're yet to convince us that they are a genuine top 8 side. That's for me. I think that obviously
are they better than the Saints?
Look. On the ladder at the moment, they are, but I don't think they will become the end of the year. I think St Kilda might be a better combination than what they are. Obviously, Hogan's got to come back into that side. Their mids are really strong. Their backs are okay. Yesterday, they kicked the ball deplorably, but so did Essendon. I mean, it was just one of those games.
Still haven't proven to me that they're consistently good enough to play finals footy. Their best footy is as good as some of the teams in the top 8. But then their worst is sort of way down there. So they've just got to even that up. They've just got to be more consistent.
Tell you who is consistent and good enough. The Adelaide Crows could not have had a more impressive start to the year. Let's take a quick look.
Mention how much quality this is compared to the rest. Adelaide's already got 80 points. And Sloan bangs it through. Off hands, Miller spins, twists, the shake and bake, and the goal.
They are absolutely flying the Adelaide Crows. There's just
they're scary.
No chink in their armour at all.
When West Coast made the grand final a couple of years ago, I thought everyone on their list, Sam, had their best year.
Yeah.
Their best year. And that's exactly what Adelaide's doing this year, including Eddie Betts, who has been a marvellous player for the last couple of years and obviously All-Australian last year. Tex Walker is playing unbelievable footy. Everyone, all of those, I guess that middle tier, they've all lifted. So you get that, and then you get that from your superstars as well. They all sort of go up a little bit, and you've got the perfect storm. The only concern for me is, can they play any better than what they're playing right now? And it's round 6. That's the only question.
Too early, you think?
You've got to get early wins on, so they're going to be able to rest players later in the year because of these early wins. But geez, they're just playing scintillating footy.
Look at the points for though. There, last year they averaged 112. Right now they're averaging 134. I mean, you can't stop them. You can't hold them.
That's ridiculous.
There was a stage in that game where Richmond looked like they were really more than competitive. They actually looked like they had their measure, and then they just put their foot to the floor again. You cannot stop their run off half-back.
Well, would you agree, looking at the Friday night game, you look at GWS and the Bulldogs, I think there's a big improvement. That was a ripping game, by the way, but you can see there's improvement in those sides. I can't see Adelaide playing any better than what they're playing right now.
But do they need to? If they were still able to play like that in the final, do they need to play any better than that to beat GWS and the Bulldogs?
Well, no, they don't. If they're playing exactly like that come September, they're going to give the premiership a shake.
Let's have a look at their opponents, the Tigers, in Tim's favourite segment. Are we buying that? And let's start with their coach, Damien Hardwick.
They're a very good side. There's no doubt they're the best side in the competition. Are we 70 or 80 points off them? No, I don't think so.
Are we buying that, Tim? Are you buying that?
I'm buying the fact that they're 70, 80 points off them, but I'm not buying the fact that they're 70 or 80 points off the rest of the competition, because they're going to do that to a lot of teams over there in Adelaide. They're going to spank them like they spanked the Tigers yesterday.
Well, they are 80 points better than Richmond, because that's exactly what they've beaten by.
I agree.
Yeah, fair enough. I want to have a quick chat about Carlton, and they rested Dale Thomas a week ago, and then they brought back 4 experienced players. One of them wasn't Daisy Thomas. So I want to have a listen to Daisy, who had a chat today, and then come back and discuss it.
I still believe that I've got some good footy ahead of me, and hopefully yesterday that shows the club and Bolts, I guess, that the little bit of inconsistency that I had been having is sort of, I can work through it.
So it's well known that Daisy's got a trigger in his contract, what I understand, around 15 games that allows him to earn serious money the following year. Have we got an issue now with having triggers in your contract that is open to manipulation for a club? Does that get...
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you rest him and then you don't pick him, and then that means you fall under that certain number of games, Duck, does that become an issue for the player going forward?
I think it's easily worked out. If Daisy is playing good enough footy to be playing in the seniors, then that's just a conversation between the club and his management to say, well, you know what, let's be fair about this. This is where he's at now in his footy career. We would like him to go on. His form warrants that, but he's not worth that money. It's a simple conversation.
And I think he's a good enough bloke that conversation will be easy. But I mean, imagine someone that was perhaps feeling a little bit estranged from a club to go down the legal path and say, well, I wasn't fairly dealt with. I had a contract that I should have been dealt with fairly.
You could see something like that playing out. I don't think it'll play out in this case.
Harshly criticised, I think. He's had some serious injuries. Yeah. He hasn't had a real good run at it yet. I'd like to see him actually maybe stay in the seconds for a couple more weeks. Get some real confidence. I know he played really well, but then when he comes back into the senior team, when he comes back in though, Darcy, he's got a real body of work underneath him. He's got some continuity in his body. He's got his hands on the footy a lot, Tim, and come in and finish off the year really, really well for the Blues.
Well said, Duck. NAB Rising Star is back for 2017. There's more to the award than just each round's nominee, and NAB has developed a recognition award that's presented to the Junior Footy Club of all the nominees, designed to support and reward those clubs that are creating future champions. Each junior club receives $1,000 and loads of training and coaching equipment. And as you can see, Carlton's Caleb Marchbank is this week's winner. He played his junior footy at the Benalla Junior Footy Club in Victoria. one of the GWS recruits that's gone over and handy player, Doug.
Yeah, he's got a good set of hands. Really, really good mark. Got to work on his disposal at times, but I like him, Das. I reckon he can really play.
He reads the play well.
He does.
Yeah, well done to that young man. Still ahead on Talking Footy. Where do Port Adelaide sit in the AFL pecking order? And will the Eagles finally win on the road this weekend? But before that, there's another massive night of footy coming up on 7.
Don't miss any of the action this Friday night.
As the Saints and Giants go head-to-head at Etihad Stadium.
Giants get a big goal as quick as a flash.
With match winners all over the ground, anything could happen.
All the way, he scored! Well done, Joey. Bruce got it! Here's Stevie J on cue.
It's the Saints and the Giants on Friday Night Footy. Live and free on 7.
Welcome to the Blowtorch. A lot of discussion after Friday night about whether or not the month. Sorry, the Blowtorch, the W Files. I'm sorry.
Welcome to say that again.
I was so earnest the way that I opened that then. Welcome to the W Files. The dangerous tackle that we talked about the weekend. Was it a dangerous tackle or not with Mumford?
Well, look, under the definition of what a dangerous tackle is, and that's when you lift a player off the ground and it's a slinging motion, that's the definition of a dangerous tackle. But was that a dangerous tackle? Yes, it still was a dangerous tackle because he pinned his arms and he drove his head. No, look, I don't think he should have got reported for it, but under the definition of what a dangerous tackle is, it isn't, but it still was a dangerous tackle.
Should somebody talk to him about that tackle then? Should he?
No. Well, that's within the rules, and he's an aggressive ruckman. He's the most aggressive.
Yeah, no, we love him for
in
that
the competition.
Yeah. Where do Port Adelaide sit in the AFL pecking order? Watto?
I've got them just below the Crows, GWS and the Bulldogs. So I reckon they're in 4th position right now as a team, and they've got the potential, I think, to even push up.
Duck, who do you take right now, Ben Brown or Sam Reid?
Oh, good question. Geez, big Benny Brown. I'd probably say Ben Brown. I reckon he's.
You like watching him play?
He's got a lot of upside. I do, Das. He was very good on the weekend. OK, Das. Will Brad Scott be the coach of the Kangaroos next year?
Yes, question. He will. Brad Scott. I would be very surprised if he did anything apart from coach North Melbourne in the near future.
OK, the question is, why did we see this situation at the weekend? This vision is from the MCG on Saturday afternoon. Obviously, we have seen down the bottom left-hand corner there, Gary Rohan's been treated. Why did play continue on when the stretcher had already been called?
Yeah, it was a mistake, I think.
Just a mistake?
Yeah, just a mistake.
It shouldn't have happened, but I think it was just a genuine error on the match day.
How can that lack of communication happen when everyone's mic'd up?
Yeah, well, it's a separate question as well. I'm not sure, Tim.
All right, I'll put that on the W Files next week.
What about this one? Will the Eagles win on the road versus Port Adelaide on Saturday, Doug?
They have the ability. They can win at Adelaide Oval. They beat the Crows there in the last round last year. So I think they can at Adelaide Oval. The MCG seems to be.
We don't want a history lesson. Just will they win?
Yes. Well, I'm saying yes, they can win. I'm not saying they will win.
Okay.
Sam? Why doesn't Cyril Rioli play in Tassie?
I don't know. Has he got something against Tassie?
Well, that's the last 4 times
Hawthorn have gone to Tassie.
Maybe he doesn't like travelling south.
He hasn't travelled.
It's cold down there.
He's played the very next week, Das.
I don't like the cold. Maybe he doesn't like the cold.
What's the final question, Sam?
The final question from Twitter. Would the Bombers have re-signed some players to save face? This is from Glenn Ingram on Twitter.
That's a good question, Watto. Was there any element of that from an Essendon point of view?
Well, I think they felt that there was an obligation that all those players that had missed last year should be re-signed and get the opportunity to play on at Essendon, yes.
And fair enough.
Yeah, I think so too.
I like it a lot. The Blowtorch fires up next with a Bombers legend. Wayne Carey has one particular rule in the gun, and one club's fans are in our sights. That's the Blowtorch. But first, if you haven't checked out the front bar in 2017, it's high time that you did.
Just plug on stairs. Have a look at his beside him. That's a bar fridge. That's his +1. We know it's Richo's baby. You can see if we just go in close. Yes.
This is the big fella. Hello, Scotty.
What's the longest you would have ever spent on the bench at any given?
I spent 3.5 quarters on a bench.
Have a look as you won't see. That's not his number.
Born into a showbiz family.
Right.
And I've ended up here.
The front bar, Thursday night on 7.
Welcome back to the Blowtorch. I'm going to kick things off. Ablett Bashers, we've had enough. In round 2, he was gone apparently, never going to play again. We'd had enough, he wasn't good enough. He's averaged 37 possessions since that time. On the weekend, he had 45 disposals, 20 clearances, which is a world record, laid 6 tackles, kicked a goal, and still some people weren't quite happy. Have a little listen to Matthew Lloyd on 3RW, and we'll come back.
And Bontempelli has 22, but he changes the game with his 22. And I've seen Ablett do it a million times, but Ablett, to me, hasn't, had the scoreboard ticking over with his disposals. That's all I'm saying.
I partly agree with what Lloydie's saying in terms, and in fairness, Lloydie was complimentary of the way Ablett played on the weekend, but it's a sport, it's a hobby. People love to try and take down one of the game's all-time greats. They booed him on the weekend. Enough. He's a superstar. Let's leave him alone.
Good work from you, Das. Now, I'm going to defend the big guys in our game. Someone needs to, and it's impossible to find a big fella with enough intelligence to articulate a defence out there. AFL coaches are going out of their way to rid the game of men over 198 centimetres. Bevo had Josh Dunkley rucking Friday night, and Dimmer chose Sean Grigg yesterday in Adelaide. Wasn't Dion Prestia feeling up to it? I'm advocating not only should players have to nominate for the ruck, but the umps should also carry a tape measure. And if you're under 198 centimetres tall, you simply don't measure up. Let's keep the dopey, big, untrammelled ids in the game and put an immediate stop to this blatant attempt to send them back to their caves.
That's strong.
Very strong. Very strong.
Are you going to go with that?
Well, I'm going some low-hanging fruit here, but the AFL Rules Committee have to go and have a chat to the umpires about Friday night, and I thought they'd got this just about right the week before, Das, but this one here, that ball goes at right angles. He's brought that ball back into the centre, did Tom Boyd, bounced at right angles, went out of bounds. He's called that deliberate. On Friday night, they just got this completely wrong. This is the other one, Stringer, under pressure. He didn't want to kick that ball there. That's under pressure, goes out of bounds. The umpires called that deliberate. They've got to straighten this up, Tim. And I know that they said after round 6 they were going to reconvene, Das, and have a discussion how the new rules. So right now they have to sit down and get this corrected.
Wholeheartedly agree with you, Duck. I've got actually your former club in my sights. North Melbourne fans on the weekend. You're 0-5. You desperately need a win, and you don't turn up. Less than 14,000 people as the ball was bounced. Look at the crowd. There's 15,431 was the maximum capacity. 5th lowest crowd at Etihad for North Melbourne. When your club is struggling, they're blooding some youth, their coach has been under pressure, go out and support your side, not just when they're making consecutive preliminary finals. That's not good enough.
They're playing the Suns.
Their club deserves
and everyone
more.
was raving about the crowd in Canberra. 14,500.
Well, that's half of Canberra. That's fair enough.
No, I agree. But when you're 0-5, the Kangaroo fans got to get out there. They played some good footy on the weekend, so get out and watch your team.
Agree.
Thanks to Gillette and Chemist Warehouse. It's time now for the Gillette Pro Shield Defensive Play of the Week. And this week, it's Ling Jong from the Western Bulldogs during their Friday night loss to GWS. Thought he was outstanding. Little man who missed out on the grand final last year with a broken collarbone. Some of his pressure acts were just superb. Great stuff.
Yeah, no, he's a goer, isn't he?
He's a machine, he is.
Yeah, he has a go.
Look at that.
Brilliant.
Great follow-up, second tackle.
You can understand why Collingwood went after him, can't you? And I think Luke Beveridge very happy to keep him.
Sure was. After the break, Watto loads up. We say that again, and we wrap up a big night here on Talking Footy.
Hard to sort of see what's that saying? The wood through the forest? I don't know what the hell it is.
We don't know what the hell it is. This is, say that again, isn't it? Not the W5. Bruce McAvaney on Friday night, he had his own sound effects with him.
Well, what you loved there was, they went,
Say that again.
That sounded magnificent, didn't it? Brian Lake, it's a sport in itself, mixing your metaphors when you're a commentator. Have a listen to Brian.
Boys, you're just talking about some of these young players out in their legs.
Say that again.
Yeah, they're all out in their legs, Brian. Wayne Carey, our own Duck, he's been spending a lot of time with his daughter recently. Have a listen to Duck at the weekend.
I love this bit. Bont going up to him saying, you know what, we kicked the goal, Mummy. We're not scared of you. Big bad wolf.
Say that again.
Big bad wolf. And BT, he always just leaves himself a little bit of an out. He did it again magnificently on Friday night.
For 2 goals apiece, and he's got it. No problems at all. That's there.
Not quite in the distance, though.
Say that again.
He's in rare form is Brian Taylor. Now, banners have become a big thing in AFL football. What did you think of the Saints in their one this week? Doug, let's have a look.
Yeah, I think it's quite clever. Our Jacks will be nimble, our Jacks will be quick. Saints say thanks for the first round pick. I thought that's very clever.
Yeah, very clever.
Very, very clever.
I know a lot of Saints fans who are very excited about where Hawthorn sit on the ladder and the fact that they are looking at a first or second pick on that deal, which was an extraordinary one at the end of last year. Now, you haven't seen this, Watto, but
no, I haven't.
Josh Bruce, this has to be the worst miss in the history of the game. No one has got close to it.
Lingy's got a close one.
He's got close, but that is unbelievable.
Lingy's isn't far off that one.
No, we've played Lingy's a few times the last couple of weeks. That's incredible that he's missed that. Tim, explain this to us.
No, I can't. I'm lost for words.
What do you mean?
I'm absolutely lost for words. I cannot. If I wasn't watching that, I wouldn't believe that he could possibly do that.
Can you imagine if that
we haven't doctored
a
that,
goal of difference?
And, we didn't doctor that, did we?
We did not doctor. That's real life.
That's not fake news, is it?
That, unfortunately, is part of Josh Bruce's CV. Now, you've been pretty unfair on Ruckman, fair to say.
No,
but I think you show some good compassion here. Mason Cox, still learning the game, the big fella, fair to say. In front of a big crowd, runs in and...
Can I just say... Can I just say this? Last year, that would have been a legitimate handball had we not changed the rules and the interpretation
because of what his club did?
No, the handball. Last year, all the blokes were thrown.
The Bulldogs led the way.
On that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's your fault, really, guys.
Just an honest mistake for a man still trying to learn the game. What are we looking forward to this week, Doug? Friday night footy.
Big Friday night.
GWS and St Kilda.
Yeah, St Kilda GWS at Etihad. That's going to be an absolute beauty.
What's the upset of the round there, Tim? Can you pick an upset winner there? Can Carlton beat Collingwood? Can West Coast go and beat Port in Adelaide?
Yeah, they possibly can, but I don't think they will. I'm really looking forward to that Melbourne-Hawthorn game too next Sunday.
Saturday night at Etihad Stadium, the Bulldogs and the Tigers going to be very interesting as well. Richmond coming back from Adelaide. How do they bounce back? And the Bulldogs all of a sudden need a win after a couple of losses. That's all we've got time for. Thanks to Wayne Carey, to Tim Watson, Sam McClure in very good form. We'll be back again with you on a Monday night on 7 Mate, Talking Footy.